Okay, we are on determining intake by estimating. So one of the nice things that you'll see on here is that it has a little chart on here. And for this, for an intake and output record, it will probably still have a chart like this, just like it had a chart when we were looking at the food acceptance record. It kind of had a little reference there for you. If it doesn't have a reference, then we can do the math for that and we can figure out how many ounces or convert, if we have an 8-ounce glass, how many milliliters that is. Again, everything is going to be measured in the milliliters. From before, we remember that 1 ounce is equal to 30 milliliters. So if I'm going to do the math for this, and I didn't have my little chart here, what I would do is take what I know, and I would know that 1 ounce is equal to 30 milliliters. And then I'm going to do a proportion. I'm going to put two ratios together. So I'm going to move this over here a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. And then what I'm going to do is take, if I know I have an 8-ounce glass of water, I would put 8 ounces on the top of this fraction. And then what I want to find out is how many milliliters there are. So I'm going to make that my X. Now again, this is assuming we do not have a chart and you need to figure out what 8 ounces is in milliliters. You can do the math yourself if you don't have a chart. So let's go over how to do this because it's probably been a little while since you've had to do this in school. So what we're going to do is we're going to cross multiply. I always start with the X side first. So I'm going to multiply X times 1, and of course I'm going to get 1x, which is just going to be x. And then I'm going to put my equal sign, and on the other side of that I'm going to multiply 30 times 8. So we've got 30 times 8. 8 times 0 is 0. 8 times 3 is 24. So my x is going to be 240. Then you need to make sure you are labeling. Now remember when we went through this we are going to match up. So ounces, if ounces is on the top here, ounces has to be on the top on this side, on this ratio. If milliliters is on the bottom here, milliliters has to be on the bottom here, and that's what we were looking for. So that's why I know that that's how I'm going to label it. But this is really nice because this has everything that we need. So let's go ahead and go through this. If we come down here, we have 1 glass of milk. So what I'm going to look up here is how much in milliliters am I going to have for 1 glass of milk. A glass is a glass. So when it says glass, that's all you're going to do is take it for what it is and look up there and just get the glass. So 1 glass is equal to 8 ounces. Remember, everything has to be in milliliters. So we're going to write down 240 milliliters. Now what I usually do is write right above the 1 glass of milk, I write just a little 240 up there. This helps me to kind of, when I have a lot of different things, it kind of helps me to be able to add all of them up at the same time and make sure I don't miss anything. Then we have a 1/2 cup of coffee. Now up here, there's specifically, it says coffee or teacup. But if you'll notice, it's also 8 ounces. But it's not always going to be the same amount. So always make sure that you are looking and you're getting your right measurements. So if 8 ounces is worth 240, then, and that's a full cup, I only need a 1/2 cup. So if I divide 240 by 2, I'm going to get 120. So now I add those two things together. So I've got 240 plus 120. And that's going to give me 360 milliliters. All right, let's go ahead and go on to number 2. The next one, we have 1 cup of gelatin. Now for 1 cup, we don't see a cup up here except for under the coffee and tea cup. And so it's a little confusing for people. So I'm going to cross out this cup right down here and I'm going to write above it serving. So whenever you see the gelatin, please make sure that you go up to gelatin and you are taking it as a serving instead of a cup. So if I have 1 serving of gelatin, that's going to be 130 milliliters. And then I have a half a glass of orange juice. Go up here to my glass. And then that's going to be an 8 ounces, which converts over to 240. So I'm going to write the milliliters down. So I've got 240. Now I'm going to add those two things together. So I've got 130 plus 240, and that's going to equal 370 milliliters. Again, you can use your calculator for these. That's absolutely fine. All right, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go through these as well. Remember, for all of these problems that have to do with this, you're going to have to look at this chart. Either that or you're going to have to figure that conversion out yourself. All right, the last little bit that we have on this packet is going to be determining fluid imbalances. So remember that your intake should equal your output, and then different things happen when that does not happen. So it tells us a lot about our person, whether they are dehydrated or overhydrated, or if they're in fluid balance. So what we're going to do here is all of these are going to be a little bit different. Some of them you're actually going to have to figure out what the intake is or figure out what the output is and then look at everything to see if it's in fluid balance. And some of them are going to be very straightforward, like the first one here. So let's go ahead and look at the first one. Mr. Genham had a total fluid intake of 1,900 milliliters and a total fluid output of 1,850 milliliters. So we know that the intake is 1,900. We know that the output is 1,850. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to subtract one from the other. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract the output from the intake because the intake is bigger. So I'm going to subtract the smaller one. And what I've got here is I've got 50 milliliters left over. Now what we've got is 50 milliliters more intake. So that's what I want you to write here. I want 50 milliliters more intake. So you can go through and really think about the whole process. Now, if we have more intake, that means that the person is not dehydrated, right? The person is overhydrated. So I also want you to think through that process, and I want you to write overhydrated. So you have 3 options that you are going to be writing down when you're doing these. I want to know which one has more intake or more output. So go through that process and how much it is. And then I want you to ask yourself, does that mean they're overhydrated? Does that mean they're dehydrated? Or does that mean that they are in fluid balance? So let's go ahead and go to the next one. We've got Mrs. Reed drank 6 glasses of water and ate 4 servings of gelatin. Her output includes urine outputs from 250, 200, 300, 275, 200, and 295. So the first thing I need to figure out is what the intake is. So using the chart that we used before, we've got the material that says how many glasses, and then also it asks us for 4 servings of gelatin. So you're going to figure that whole thing out, add those up, and that's going to be your total intake. And then you're going to add up all of your urine outputs, and then you're going to put it under output. If one is bigger than the other, you're going to subtract the smaller one from the bigger one and see how much more you have of one or the other, and then go through the same process over here. So you're going to do those for all of these, please. And then remember, I do want to see your work as much as possible. So please make sure that you are writing down so I know you've got the concepts well. And then you can either, again, you can scan these and put them in Google Classroom, or you can take pictures of them and put them in Google Classroom. But I really want to see whether you've got this down or not. We are going to continue to build on this. So the next video that you're going to have is doing a daily intake and output form and how you would actually record that. And then the next one is going to be a 24-hour intake and output record. So those are going to be posted very shortly.